All right, so we're talking about Sukuna's curse technique in this video, and mainly because new information was brought to my attention by Lightning446 on Twitter. Go follow them, they're great. One of the top Jujutsu Kaisen Twitter people, or content creators, whatever you want to call them. But apparently, we could be seeing a parallel between Gege's previous work to Jujutsu Kaisen and Sukuna's current abilities. So, Gege's first series, or one of his first series, was called Number 9. And the main character of that was Hiromasa Tsukumo. I know, interesting, Tsukumo carryover. Well, there's going to be a bunch of carryover, but this character, his ability is that he can summon weapons using his ability called Box 9. And he does this by calling open, or fuga, as the same way that Sukuna does. Like the exact same phrasing, wording, everything. And the first thing that Tsukumo brings out is like a bow and arrow. Same thing as Sukuna when he says open, when he's going against Jogo. And he is also able to use like a machete, a sword, a hammer, an iron fist. Also, he's fighting one of the opponents that he faced in that series summons a creature called Orochi. Now, Orochi is, ubiquitous to battle manga and, Asian mythology and whatnot, but still similarities. So I think that this is pretty much what Sukuna's ability is. But going more into that, I want to touch on another theory by another Twitter creator by the name of Malua, where they break down Viz's translation better on what Yorozu refers to Sukuna's curse technique as, because she says that it is Malevolent Shrine. But even before that, like when we were looking up the spoilers for that chapter, the spoiler people, or Miyamura, said that it was just called Shrine. And I thought that was better because, like, oh, that'd be cool if that was just his curse technique, and Malevolent Shrine is the domain expansion. But it seems like it is called Shrine. But going deeper into that, it's not necessarily like a holy shrine, like a place you go to pray or worship, but it's more so like a feretory, which is a type of shrine where like holy relics are stored essentially, and it's portable. So that seems like what is applicable to what Sukuna is doing here. His shrine is what his innate ability is. And there's some other stuff about Indra and Ashura and the Pashu Patastra and the Bharata, which is an Hindu epic. I'm not good at this, guys. I'm American. We're not good at that stuff. But I think this all makes sense, and it could lead to Sukuna having all of the weapons that we just mentioned, along with another bow and arrow, which is lightning, not just fire. It goes back to when Sukuna originally showed us the flame arrow against Jogo, and he says, "Oh, that's right, I thought you'd know about this, but I suppose a cursed spirit wouldn't." You could take that many ways, but I guess it just means that Jogo, either being a cursed spirit, is relatively a new being on Earth, like he hasn't lived as long, but also maybe he wouldn't be able to look into history the way that everyone else can and see if there's any documented evidence of what Sukuna was able to do in the past. But your thoughts on Sukuna's curse technique possibly being Shrine and him having just multiple abilities because of that. And then I'll go more into what could be responsible for him having these multiple abilities.
All that was interesting. It should say that, yeah, Sukuna has some sort of storing type maneuver, and honestly this just reminded me similar to Rika, and they kind of shared similarities, right, with like Rika being the queen of curses and she stores techniques, Sukuna being the king of curses. So Sukuna could have like an arsenal of tertiary techniques like the fire ability stored within, I guess, like the metaphysical shrine place. And like you said, a malevolent shrine in like the Japanese kanji does translate to demonic feretory. And you said feretory is like a container, right?
Yeah, portable for
Okay.
holy objects.
Okay, a container that holds relics for saints. I guess like if we were to tie that into Jujutsu Kaisen, well, saints can easily be replaced for sorcerers and relic, prized possession stuff, could tie to like Sukuna's other cursed techniques or tertiary abilities. So this malevolent shrine could overall translate to a container or a portable storing place for Sukuna to well store them. And I think that the design of Malevolent Shrine also helps with that. The dead skull, the huge mouth in the center, or it can further convey that this theory where Sukuna, who's already confirmed a cannibal back then, eats and stores the user's technique within his shrine. And to use those techniques, he needs to open this shrine place, just like he did in the fight with Jogo and in the fight with Maharaga.
Yeah, also as well, in the fan book, they give the names. When you look at other characters and what their techniques are, it normally has a name for them, but we don't have a name for Sukuna's technique. It just says Sukuna's technique and that it is a slashing hellfire of a slaughter. And then it also says that even though cursed techniques commonly only have one characteristic, Sukuna's is confirmed to have at least two, which you can say implies that there's more. And that goes back to like the shrine thing that you guys said. When he said open against Jogo and Jogo was surprised, he said, "Oh, I thought you would have known about this." That could be implying that he thought that Jogo should have known about that he can bring out other techniques, or you can say that he just thought Jogo was supposed to know about the fire. But if it's going back to like the shrine thing, like you guys said, a place where you store things, then that means he was basically saying to Jogo, "Oh, I thought that you would have known that I can use other curse techniques."
Yeah, no, I think at this point, we've probably seen enough to, for sure, like I'm just reading this fan book right now, like we've seen enough to establish that Sukuna's cleave and dismantles, his slashing abilities, are his main base attacks. Because way before, I thought there could be more, but I think that's it. But then, of course, his fire, the fact that he has to say open to unlock said ability, it does make me believe that the storing type maneuver is sort of Sukuna's a second, I guess, technique.
I'm curious about the tattoos, because we see tattoos like Sukuna's in the Edo period in Japan, and usually they were prison tattoos, or at least like convict tattoos. And when he says open, a lot of people think they are equivalent with the tattoos. And the weapons that Sukuna uses generally, like the Pashupatastra that you mentioned, you have things like the Trishula, which is the giant trident that you see him use. And in Hinduism, that's supposed to be this unstoppable weapon that was used by Shiva. So I've always had a theory like maybe that would be used to break infinity, because a lot of foreign weapons in Jujutsu Kaisen, that's what disrupts the technique, like Inverted Spear of Heaven or the Black Whip. It's never something from Japan.
Yes, that is true. And I'm glad we're going more into the cursed tools here, because that could be the secret here. Now, honestly, I'm not really sure. I think it could be either Sukuna consuming people, because that's what I thought at the beginning, or it could be him doing something with cursed tools, because that's what we could possibly be seeing. Like cleave, dismantle, they're like blades, and then he has the fire arrow thing. Or when you said about the marks on his body, when he says open, there's like that box next to him, and we see the box on his body. So it could have something to do with some kind of binding vow, or just the way that his abilities work. He has to have it on his body for some reason. Also, it's a great way to, denote that Sukuna has taken over somebody. But maybe if it's not eating somebody, because I've also said before that, he could be paralleling, like we've said, to Rika, King and Queen of Curses. Apparently, I mean, it's not straight up confirmed, but it's implied that Rika needs to consume blood or the flesh of somebody, and then that's how Kotsu gains their ability. And also, when we saw Rika, like, open up her, whatever she opens up, there's, like, all those, like, swords and weapons and stuff in here, which is, just like what we were talking about with Shrine. But maybe it is him receiving cursed tools, maybe. Because going back to chapter 219, after he kills Yorozu, she gives him one final thing. We don't get to see what it is, but it's implied that she's constructing something. And I think this is supposed to mirror to what happened with Mai and Maki. Like, as Mai was dying, she made the soul-cutting sword for Maki. And considering that they both have almost exactly the same curse techniques, or is it the same? I don't know. We'll talk about that later. But Yorozu is constructing something for Sukuna. She says, "Here, this is for you. Think of it as me and use it with care." And we don't see Sukuna have anything with him when he's going against Gojo. And she does say shrine. She knows of what Sukuna's ability is. She has history with him. So maybe that's what it is. And like, she gave him this thing, which could also go back to the whole Hindu epic thing, because they were gifted the Vajra and that other P word So what she could be doing is mirroring that as well, and giving him maybe the thing that he needs to defeat Gojo, like you were saying. What can take down Limitless? So what do you think about that?
While y'all talk about that, I'm gonna try to find. There's something in the fan book about Mai's construction technique, so I'm gonna be looking for that.
I'm glad you mentioned the Vajra, because there's a lot of hints towards Sukuna being the Susanoo god, or the god Susanoo in Japanese mythology within Jujutsu Kaisen, like him fighting Yamato no Orochi, being a harvest ritual deity. I think it's pretty obvious for Japanese readers. I've had some tell me that at least. But him having the Vajra, which was the weapon of Indra, to summon lightning, I mean, I think that's pretty fitting. And most of his weapons seem to be like a divine arsenal contained within this shrine.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I haven't done my due diligence on like the whole Japanese mythology stuff, but I am like looking at chapter 219 when Yorozu does supposedly create something with her technique and give it to Sukuna. It does parallel to what Mind Maki did. The kind of like doubt I'm having is that with the Mind Maki, we did see like the sword spawn in or whatever, like what Mai created in that scene, whereas with Sukuna, I'm like when I'm looking at these panels, I'm thinking, did Yorozu actually end up creating something, or did she like disappear before she could actually make something? Because like you said, we didn't see anything with Sukuna unless it's somewhere hidden portably. I don't really know, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
I definitely think that she made something for Sukuna, because if you look at back when Gojo comes back, at the end of that chapter, remember when Gojo and Sukuna are about to scrap, but Kenjaku pulls up? Sukuna has a flashback to those words that Yorozu says about teaching him about love. Like he has a flashback to whatever she created in that moment before they accept the fight again for a later date. I'll go grab that.
Yeah, I wondered what that was about.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it for sure. I've always interpreted that line with Sukuna, like obviously not in a love romantic way.
It's just like whatever she made, he's about to use. Like he thought about it and then accepts the fight.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Until we get the full Sukuna backstory, it's kind of hard to make like a definitive statement on what he means by love, because Sukuna wasn't always like four-eyed, four-armed demon man. So him being close with people like Kenjaku and Tengen, who were friends previously, and Tengen and Kenjaku, or at the very least Tengen, weren't always like problematic in society. Tengen was going around preaching Buddhism in the Nara period, and then 200 years later, Sukuna pops up as the king of curses. So something went down during that time.
Yeah, I speculated that, I mean, this is a topic for another time, but he maybe had a brother. We actually talked about this in another collab, I think, but like he maybe had a brother or something and then ate him or fused with him or something. Just something he did that led him to having the body that he has, like with the four arms and like the weird face and the four eyes. Whatever he did, like it probably had something to do with that ritual, the bath ritual. But instead of making like a cursed tool, it just made Sukuna the way that he is. And then once he successfully did it, he was just the one above all, essentially.
I think, yeah, it says Mai's curse technique. What does it say Yorozu's curse technique? It says construction, because it's suddenly they have the same curse technique, but they use it in different ways, though.
I'm reading the panel again. So in that chapter when Gojo and Sukuna has an encounter, and when Sukuna sees Gojo talking about to delay the date for their battle, and he thinks about Yorozu's quote of like, I have much more to teach you about love and the ultimate strength and the solitude it brings. So Mir, just to like understand, so you were thinking that, oh, Sukuna was going to use whatever Yorozu's technique or whatever Yorozu created back then?
Yeah. Basically, it's like he's looking over, well, hearing the offer that Gojo's making. Then he has a flashback to what Yorozu crafted or whatever she was saying when she was crafting him the tool, and then he accepts the fight.
Okay. But I think that like panel when Yorozu said, I have much more to teach you about love, it wasn't like when Yorozu was crafting, whatever she did to Sukuna or whatever she crafted for Sukuna. I think that quote like correlates back to, it was like the same chapter, but it was like in the flashback. So when Yorozu first met Sukuna. Do you guys know what I mean? Or
I know what
or
you're
am I
talking about.
tripping?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was from the flashback or the
For some reason, I can't find the exact quote though.
It's at the end of 218.
Oh, 218. Okay, I was looking at 219.
Yeah, it's the last. It's the second to last page.
Yeah, so like I think like my interpretation of that quote was like Sukuna just acknowledging that, of course not in a lovey-dovey way with Gojo, but Gojo is someone that can validate his own strength, and that's why he's sort of okay to delay the day. And also, of course, I think Kenjaku has like a binding vow with him where he can't actually say no, and or else something would happen with the binding vow they made.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, there is definitely a lot of binding vows going on that we're not privy to for sure. But I think I agree with both of you. I agree with Weeb's take on this because, yeah, that statement does mean that for sure. But also him thinking back to what she was saying. Could be both. It could be remembering what she said and how it relates to Gojo for sure, but also remembering what she did for him at the end of her life and giving him that whatever cursed object, cursed tool. So yeah, I think it could be both here, but that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Thank you to the Fake Weeb, Mir, and Quirkless Shinobi for coming by for this week's discussion. Really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, always. And subscribe to their channels if you have not already. Don't subscribe to mine. And
No, guys, subscribe to Zhoniin.
leave some comments, give the video a like, and see you in the next one.